Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Wheeler and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and in particular when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons I'm going to talk about Chris Perkins' adventure preparation method. He never made a secret of how he prepares his adventures, and I thought I would share that information with you just in case you were not aware. So Chris Perkins of the Wizards of the Coast design team, quite a long time ago, he never kept a secret about his dungeon mastering techniques. In fact, he told everybody pretty much everything they ever wanted to know about what he did as a dungeon master at the table, which I thought was really, really awesome. You might be able to find the series of articles that he had written many years ago as a dungeon master. It might be a bit hard to find and access them now because I believe they're no longer on the Wizards of the Coast website, and you might have to go trawl through Google and try and find some sort of hidden archives somewhere on the internet. One of Chris Perkins' articles covered his adventuring preparation method, and that's what I'm going to cover for today. I thought that would be the one that you'd be most interested in. I have used this very simple method for many years myself when it comes to writing my own material. And I've had reasonable success as a dungeon master with it. So I thought this is the one to sort of share. And it's very, very simple. It's pretty quick. It doesn't require an awful lot of brain power by you. But I do feel that Chris Perkins' method of preparing adventures is more for a intermediate to experienced dungeon master rather than a absolute brand new dungeon master. So if you're brand new, this advice might not necessarily be suitable for you, but if you've been dungeon mastering for a little while or you're experienced, you've probably got your own methods anyway. It doesn't really matter quite so much then, right? So the adventure preparation method consists of this. You have one A4 page of paper. That's it. You're going to start off with 3 or 4 sentences on your recap with what happened last time, or if you're starting your adventure from the very beginning, it'll cover your adventure hook so that your players and you know exactly what's going to be taking place. It's also going to cover a number of other sections, and that is going to be broken up into the players' characters, locations, non-player characters that might be involved in the story or adventure that you run, or the session. Really, this is more about the session rather than an entire adventure. And then the last section is just the encounters that might take place, the things that might happen when you're running your adventure at the table. And usually, like I said, this is more around a single session rather than a huge campaign. We're not talking about campaign sort of information. So the preparation section, starting off with the adventure hook or recap, this, like I said, usually consists of about 3 or 4 sentences. Try to keep it simple and concise. Don't waffle. It is all right to write it up in note form. You do not have to use linking words and use paragraphs and stuff like that. It is absolutely not necessary. It is a reminder for the dungeon master and the players as to what they're supposed to be doing that session. It will cover key points. Remember, it's quality over quantity with regard to that small paragraph that you write on your adventure hook or recap. After that, the players' characters are important. And usually when it comes to the players' characters, you need to make a note of what their character's name are, what sort of goal, if the players have made it quite clear what their goal is within the adventure, they might have a very specific arc for that character, or they might just have a particular goal they are trying to achieve related to the overall campaign. You might have a little bit of information on their background. Now, when I start talking about those elements, I'm really only talking about a single line of notes for each player character. So it's very stripped down. It's a summary of the character. So when I say background, use one word. Now, when I come to their goal, it may be only consist of 1 or 2 words. Their name is only going to be 1 or 2 words. So it's not an awful lot of information. Only the things that are absolutely necessary as a reminder. So you're running really with a skeleton rather than a full-blown pre-published adventure. Next, we're dealing with the adventure locations. 5 different locations is about right. Usually within any kind of game session that you have, unless you're playing a very long time like 8 hours or 12 hours or something crazy like that, but usually most game sessions are between 2 and 4 hours, 5 different locations is about right. You need a basic description of that location. You might have a name for that location as well, and that can cover things such as a lair of some sort of monster. It might be a dungeon, it might be a castle, it might be a tavern. There's lots of different things it could be. It can also be just locations within the wild. It might be just the mountaintop, something simple like that. Okay, the next section is the players or non-player characters. These are the characters that the Dungeon Master is going to run. And usually I would consist of about 5 to 6 different characters. That's a good number in terms of running a single session. And it's going to cover vital things like the non-player character's name, a basic description. Remember, try to keep it down to 1 or 2 words. You're not trying to... Don't worry about using and, it's, the. It's just not important. You can break it down into things like personality trait, bond, ideal, and flaws, and you know how to do that. There's plenty of guidance on the back of some of the Dungeon Master screens and within the actual player's handbook that you can use, and the Dungeon Master's guide as well. So 1 word, 2 words for each of these different areas, and that gives you the basics. It's also quite important for a non-player character to provide things that are around their motivation. And often things like the bond, ideal, and flaw may have the motivation for that character already tied up in it. Now, often the non-player characters consist of a patron, so this is the person who gives the adventure, or their contact that they often engage with. The player's characters will often engage with the patron of some kind. And then there's the villain. Usually those are the 2 main non-player characters you absolutely have to have. And the other 3 are probably just splatterings within the adventure that serve different purposes depending on what you have written and put together. Okay, so that covers those. Now, the last section is the encounters. Now, when it comes to encounters, these are possible encounters. They won't absolutely happen. It's not a railway train, so they might occur depending on what the player's characters do at the very beginning of the session, at the middle of the session, or near the end of the session. Usually 6 is a good enough for 1 game session. You don't really need to have more than 6. I think that's a reasonable number. Now, remember, the encounters should be driving the story or adventure forward. If they are there, something like a random encounter is something you can probably do without. You can put that together pretty quickly without having to have that as part of your encounters at the bottom of your page. These things will cover such areas as the 3 pillars. So exploration, combat is often going to be a common go-to, and then social interactions, where there isn't going to be any kind of combat, and any attempt to engage in combat will probably result in the player's characters butchering whoever they decide to attack because they're not equipped for combat. So remember, exploration, combat, social encounters, and then you can tie other things and make it much broader than that. You can add in things like traps. A trap may in fact be an encounter in itself, or it might be tied to a combat. Things like puzzles, they may come across a location or a room and it has a puzzle they have to actually figure out to allow them to move forward in the adventure, or provide them a different route. Often if you use a puzzle as a barrier and you have to complete the puzzle to move forward, if they can't complete the puzzle, then they're sort of stuck. So that's often a trap for Dungeon Master. So it will include those sorts of things. And then if you are the sort of person who uses the Dungeons & Dragons 4e concept of the skill challenge, but just transferred it over to Dungeons & Dragons 5e, then you're going to be dealing with something revolving around a series of skill checks, or the uses of players' abilities or spells to achieve a goal, whatever that might be, or deal with a problem or a conflict. So those are the basics. I found it really, really useful myself over the years, and this is why I wanted to share it. And it is not my personal method. It's not something I developed. It is actually something that Chris Perkins shared on the internet quite some time ago. I really hope this has been useful to you, and if it has, fantastic. I have hundreds of videos for players and dungeon masters, which you are welcome to go and check out. Now, if you want to support the channel so I keep doing videos like this, then I have a Patreon page where you can support me there, get access to the live streams and other additional content that other people don't get access to. I also have affiliate links to the book depository and Amazon, and I get a small commission from those, whatever you buy. I also have merchandise shelf underneath each of my videos where you can buy merchandise if you want to. Remember to share, like, and subscribe. Hit the bell button to be notified when I go live and when I publish new videos, and I do that quite a lot. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.